Things I used to do, I don't do no more. Things I used to do, I don't do no more. For the Lord's made a change in me.
It's the 10th of October, 2024, and I am speaking in a last-minute substitution with Neil from the Northeast U.S., and what happened is that Neil Foster, I was scheduled to talk with, and they're in the direct line of Hurricane Milton that is due to touch down, in Tampa, but it's going to cross right over them. And so they're doing all these preparations, and he and I just recorded about a 10-minute update, and I have these odd little ghost in the machine problems with Neil Foster, and his side of the conversation didn't record. So I may do something anyway. I'd gotten some footage of the prep and so forth for that, but at any rate, the reason I'm not speaking with Neil Foster is he is trying to make preparations for Hurricane Milton. So this is Neil from the Northeast U.S., and thanks for hopping in last minute, Neil. How are you?
Doing very well, thank you. Yes, I'm just getting ready myself for the New England winter. It's going to be very cold soon. So yeah, it's getting in touch with the cold right now. So just getting ready for that and staying busy with work and, hanging in there, as I say.
Mm-hmm. Now, you obviously are not from northeastern U.S. You want to tell people where you're from originally? And
just south of the Yorkshire Dales, like a valley in the north west of England. It's near Hebden Bridge area. So if you can remember the All Creatures Great and Small.
Oh, yes.
So I grew up in a similar area to that, and similar characters in that show that I grew up around. Real characters that were down to earth and good common sense, and so that was the environment I grew up in, and public school and all that, and it was a very good upbringing because we had a lot to. We were always out. Obviously no cell phones. We're all, you went out for the day. You did your young gatherings and went out up, on the moors and caused trouble and did all that. And it was actually, thinking back on that life then, it was actually a very good time, and I feel lucky to have, well, I don't know, lucky, whatever the word is, but to have actually experienced that and not have to deal with all these electronic devices that I am a very, a big minimalist with now. Like any of them anyway, you've got to spread the truth and use these, this technology to do that. And I have spent quite a long time, going through all kinds of researches over the last 10 or 15 years and, listened to a lot of, talks and, purchased quite a lot of books over the years. And, I feel like I should get reading these books and turn these computers off but I'm busy with work and stuff like that, so. But yeah, so that's where, northeast of England, and, I really did have a good sort of, life back there,
Well, Alan and I loved the All Creatures Great and Small, and he's mentioned it on talks before, and just the whole life, everything that was portrayed there. And yes, it was thinly fictionalized, but it was based on a real veterinarian's experiences and the people and the Yorkshire Dales people. Your accent really brings that whole show back,
Very tough people, hardy people, especially. You need to be with the weather you get there, with the driving rains, so.
What did your folks do there?
My dad had, so it's like a working class area, but sort of middle class as well. And my dad did well for himself, very hard working. He started off as a mechanic and then he ended up going into the textile business and became partners with someone and became very successful, fairly successful. He had a Milling Sorby Bridge, which was nearby, and he did, so we sort of we kind of lived a bit higher up on the hill sort of thing, we did okay. And all my friends were, just very good friends, and they live sort of like in, lower down, but it was good. It was good. Very good upbringing, and unfortunately, my father ended up losing his business. All kinds of things happened, and I ended up coming over here for a few reasons, really, because when I got to my teens, I started going out to the pubs and all that, and that was really good because all right, a bit young to be drinking, but then along came the I don't know why I'm talking, but yeah, the rave scene came along, and in Manchester, so it was. They labelled it Madchester because all these bands started to spring up, like in Spiral Carpets, Stone Roses, and all these sort of indie bands, and then you had all this techno music, and then all of a sudden all these party drugs came flooding in. It was almost like the second wave from the 60s of like promoting and injecting, the drug thing into society. So I was going, that, and for me that sort of ruined just the normal going out to the pubs with your friends. All of a sudden we got into these mad crazy raves, and taking these silly, party drugs. It was, of course you had fun, but it was just stupid. You know what I mean? The stupid things that you do when you're going through those teen things, So, my father started to lose his business, and things weren't going great at home either. So a few friends decided to go to Key West to start with, just to just to go there and do some soccer training and all that. And I sort of followed on after that. So that was back in '94. I had a stint then in '94, and I worked there for a while, even though we weren't supposed to. It was a 3-month visa that you get when you come over, like a travel visa. And then we bought a van and went traveling all around America, and I had a great time doing all that. Ended up going through Texas, spent a bit of time, I don't know how far away you are from Humble, is it? Which is in the north, near Houston.
What's it called?
Humble, Humble. I think it's just near Houston.
That's nice, no.
Town anyway, yeah. So I went all over California, Las Vegas, all those main places to visit, and it was a really good time, just traveling around. Of course, we spent, the original plan was to, sleep in the camper van, just now and again we'll get a hotel and take a shower and all that, but because we're so young and, pretty, at that age, we just ended up blowing all our money, way too soon, and then all of a sudden we had to, find work out there in California. And anyway, we ran out of money. We drove back down to this place north of Houston, and then we went to. I ended up staying in touch with a friend who'd moved up to Nantucket Island. Anyway, I went up there with like no money at all. I got there, and then I found some work in the first week. And I managed to make it through, the first week without having to borrow money and get like a wage and start off from there. And then from there, I actually did okay. And, that island, there was a lot of work, and I paid for like trade work there. So that was quite an experience, And then I came back and I spent a bit of time in Sweden for a while. And then I went back to England for a while. And then in 2003, I came back over here. So I've been here since then. Now I live just north of Boston. So yeah, it's been quite a journey doing all that, and ending up here, So.
Well, that's you didn't stay still. What do your parents think about all of your traveling?
My dad thought I was just going to go there for a couple of weeks and then go back, But I ended up sticking it out, and. Things weren't going great at home at that time, so there wasn't that much for me to go back to. Otherwise, I probably would have gone back. And I was supposed to go back anyway because, my visa had expired. But, 19-year-old, you just do whatever, we just did whatever we wanted to do, I mean, I've always been very curious, and I've always been sort of anti-establishment, I suppose you could say, in my own sort of way. I've never, bought into, even though I went through the phase of like, wanting to make a lot of money, but I never really got into that. And I've always sort of been looking I didn't know quite the same old story where you just don't know exactly what's wrong, but there's something not right. So you start to, look around. And I've always been very into, looking at old books and, I haven't read a lot. I can't say I should probably read a lot more than I do, when I'm not too busy, but, I've always been sort of curious for, to find things from different bookshops. And, I ended up coming across, one very good health book called Nourishing Traditions by Sally Fowler. So at the time I was wanting to do some cooking, so I ended up getting that. But but I've always been looking for and I've never, I've always known something wasn't right with the whole damned establishment. And then I suppose in 2014 is when a friend put me on to the 9/11 thing, which is how a lot of people start, looking for truths, and you go through all that, and then you find some people aren't quite what you thought they were, and then you look at other researchers, and I've gone through all the Michael Tazarian and David Icke, and a few people that Alan has been in touch with as well. Is it Clint Richardson? I think Freeman Fly was another one that Alan was talking to. So I've looked at all their work, but they always seem to. There's one little thing they don't seem to address, which is the David Icke the reptilian thing. So if you stay away from that and the aliens, then they have a lot of good things to say, But then the more I looked, so I went over them all, Jordan Maxwell, and then a friend put me on to Mark Passio. I don't know if you've heard. He has a website called What Stuff Is Happening. He's quite, straightforward, straight-nosed, type of guy. So I was listening to a lot of his podcasts on his website, and at the end of his website, on one of his sections, he has a list of people, that he recommends to look through. And that's when I got to Jordan Maxwell, and he has Alan's on there, Alan Watt. And so I'm like, okay, Alan Watt. The funny thing was, at that time, I was listening to Alan Watts, the philosophical entertainer. And so I'm like, Alan Watt, and I come across Alan Watts. Alan Watt, what's going on here? So then I started to get on his website and listening to him. And he was the one, and then I'd listen to the other guys, and they had a lot to say, and I know a lot of them sort of have some sort of a, what do you want to say, a connection or something like that, and maybe playing certain roles for who. But I started listening to Alan, and and then I'd always default back to Alan, and then I got onto I'm sorry, I'm saying not too much all at once here.
No, you're doing fine.
And then I really liked Jackie Petru series. I mean, some really amazing deep things in that. Really. So, and then I'd go listening to some other people, but I would always default back to Alan, and then I got onto Neil Foster as well, and it was those were the two sort of go-to kind of guys for me to listen to. So I got a lot out of Neil Foster's, interviews and talks as well, as well as Alan. And so in the end, it's sort of all funneled down to Neil Foster and Alan, and then, of course, at the worst possible time, he passed away. I couldn't believe it. And then, but then obviously, I mean, for you to carry it on and keep this website going, I really have to say thank you very much that, you kept it going and made it, and really enhanced it as well with all the work you've put in. This history thing as well has been great. And, you're keeping it going well, pretty much the only person I listen to. There's a few others, but, you're the main one,
Well, so. That's nice. I wish that Neil was able to keep up the reality bites. Things changed over there with the Sovereign Independent, and it's just because when he has his own, he gets great guests, and he's a good host. So, but I talk to him regularly, and we cover some ground, so that's good.
Yeah, I remember I kept tuning into Reality Bytes and seeing that nothing had been put up, and then the next, he's doing the real histories with you. And
one thing that happened, this happened probably early on in Operation C. I lose track of time, but the Sovereign Independent website just kept getting sustained hits, one after another, and they would just be disabled. It was obviously orchestrated.
Yeah.
So they ended up just moving their operation over to Telegram, and they're still there. They put out, interesting content. I go and find articles, and of course Neil brings a lot of things to my attention that come directly also from Sovereign Independent, but it isn't the same. When they had a website, they had Neil's show and they had other things that they were hosting that it was a nice thing, but you can't, once the guns are put on you and you're under that kind of attack, if you don't have a huge staff, constantly reinforcing your infrastructure, you're not going to survive that kind of attack, so.
Well, I'm glad you've got the patience, you and Neil and everybody, to do all this on a computer, because I wouldn't have the patience for it. And
no,
you have to do it, and you're doing it, So, well, I'm glad you're doing it. So keep it up, keep it going. I know you will. So.
I plan to as long as is humanly possible. Now that was one thing that Neil and I actually said today before when we were going to talk regularly, and we didn't know that he was going to be in direct line of fire of this hurricane, that we would be talking about what happens next, because we both have this feeling that our window on the internet to be able to say anything is really closing quickly. And I have to do, for certain channels, I have to do a fair bit of self-editing or, bleeping out words and putting, clever images in to get the point across. But it's becoming clear that especially if you look at other countries and see the kinds of things they did, like, for instance, in Canada with the trucker strike, and the way that anyone who even donated a small amount of money to them had their bank accounts closed. And, now we're all, even in the U.S., if you say something on one of your social media accounts, that could be you, because this is the social credit system. We're under it. It's here, and it will become more obvious. So I think it's just a way. I've had a paper address book and a notebook where I write anybody who writes me a letter or sends me their telephone number, that kind of thing. I keep it in a book, and it's just a matter of,
keep the paper thing going as well,
Mm-hmm.
Paper, for me, sorry to interrupt you.
No, go ahead.
No, just cash is cash is king, even though that's another story in itself, the cash thing. I use it, the thing is, some people, they're sort of semi-awake or awake, and they're like, oh yeah, cash, but then they're using the cards all the time. It's like, well, what can you do, as an individual, right? So use cash. Right, I use cash, and I even use it. I started to use. Okay, so you start using cash on certain things, and then I'm like, okay, how can I do even better? Okay, so I use my card. I was using my card to purchase gas, which is the convenience of it. All right, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'm not even going to do that. I'm going to go inside, get out of my truck, and I'm going to go in. I'm going to get what I need, and I'm going to pay cash. And I'm going to walk back out and get back, fill up, and go. So you can, do you know what I mean? If you just do things like that, where what you can do on an individual level to at least throw a spanner in the works for this cashless madness. So I'm trying to be completely cash whenever I buy things now. But you'd have a job.
Well, I think that's a good point. The recording that failed this morning, the little, 10-minute update on Neil's prep, one of the things that he mentioned was that yesterday he went to the dollar store to get some more supplies, things that they needed in the house, and there were about 8 or 10 people in line, and they had a power outage at the dollar store. The power went out, the cash registers went down, and the cashier said, "I can help anybody that has cash, and the rest of you are out of luck."
Oh.
And Neil said that he was the only person in line of like 8 or 10 people that were there who had cash to pay. He said, "I always carry cash. I've got plenty of cash because things like this happen."
Yeah. It's just, you shouldn't have satisfaction using it, but you do when you know all the electronics and the blips on the screens going on, because you just give someone, you know exactly where you are with it. You don't have to keep looking on your computer and looking at your account, make sure that's gone through, or this hasn't been happening. In fact, not that long ago, I actually had somebody, somehow, had got my account number, and they were using, there was somebody somewhere in Ohio using a limousine service, and I'd not checked my account for a long time. In fact, I should never signed on for online banking. But I did it at the time because I wasn't I was a bit naive then, with what's happening now. They'd taken maybe 1,500 out over the course of a few, but I went straight to the bank. They gave me back straight away. Then they did an investigation. But it's like, for every person that gets robbed with cash, because people are like, oh yeah, well they can't. There's probably thousands that get an online scam happen. So. Mm-hmm. What would you rather use, that's more safer, what's better to use? Get some cash in your pocket and have your wits about you, People are worried about getting robbed, but people are too busy messing about with their phones, these days. And you could rob a house and nobody'd even know. They'd just staring at phones. So, I mean.
Yeah.
So.
Well,
it's like what can you do on an individual level, and that's, using cash is one, and refusing the scanners at the airport's another one, so I refuse them all the time. And of course, they're introducing these facial recognition things at the airports now. Most people don't even know that you can just say no to that. Mm-hmm. It's like I go through there, an airport, and it's like, if everybody did this, they'd have to take these machines out. So there's the power. But no, obviously, you know what I mean? If people just didn't
said no,
apply, you know what I mean? They'd have to take these machines out, and that's never going to happen, of course. I'm just thinking to myself, And then I remember traveling to England once, and we're trying to get people to go through the facial recognition, and I went straight to the counter, and I don't normally like kicking up a fuss, but I was annoyed, and I said, "Look, this is a civil rights violation. This is, And I said to her, "Can she have this sort of like funny smirk on her face?" I said, and then one of the guys said, he said, "Well, they get you, when you walk through the airport." I said, "Well, but I haven't done it willingly with my name behind it, And then the next time I went through, there was a girl there, and I went through, and she was like, "Oh," and I started to come, I said, "What's this about? This is just a civil rights violation." And she said, and I said, "Shame on you for allowing people to go through it." And it was like, I don't know, I just, I try to go through airports smoothly. I don't like to kick up a fuss, because airports are quite, not the places you want to be getting in trouble in, because of all the, the terrorism, acts and all that they can use against you. So anyway,
I think as long as you're reasonably polite,
that's what you have to do, and I try and be, and just make it through. But when you can refuse these things, then you have to do it. If you're of like mind, like me, you have to take the action and actually don't go through the scanners. Tell them you don't go through it. You're supposed to say, legally, "I'm opting out of this."
Yes, but, and then they say, "Okay, we're going to frisk you down or take you in the private back room." Yes.
But I've gotten away with just saying, "I'm not going through that." I'll just say flat out. But legally, they're supposed to have you say, I want to opt out. So I could have sued them and got them in trouble. Maybe I should have done. No, I mean, the thing is, I just want to get through there without this, but I want to make sure that they're not going to, do all those, scanners, all those ridiculous machines they have in there. I mean, I don't mind a metal detector because, that's fine, walk through one of them and beep with, just for any, that's it. But these scanners are just a nightmare, I mean, all the radiation they're giving off, all the RFRs.
It's terrible.
Getting at it's just sort of like what can you do on an individual level if you don't like that? You've got your website, you're spreading the truth of doing that. And you feel a little bit sort of helpless like me sometimes because I'd like to feel like I want to do more. I mean, I talk about Alan's work and all that to people, but I'm pretty much just getting on with my own carpentry work and I have a few hobbies I do. But I just feel, what can you do on an individual level? I use cash, so whatever I can do on that, that right down to it individual level is what I try, I do. So at least I've got a bit more of a clear conscience, doing that. So I feel I always more. I mean, I don't want to try and make myself out like I am doing. But what can you do apart from,
Well, a couple of things Alan always said is think for yourself. So that's a key thing. And another thing that he said is say no. So whenever you're saying no, when you can say no, whether it's a scanner or, not using a card, those are good things.
Yeah, at least that's start off with that. And I'm sure people listening, of like mind to this, do a lot of this, I hope, and I know a lot of them are quite techie and they're doing their bit. So, but for me, I'm a traditionalist. I like nature, I like being outside, I like doing things, and I do read some interesting books now and again. But I like to be to be by a computer for me is it's not for me at all.
Now, what have you read recently?
Oh, I'll tell you what I've read that you've read that was very good was that Tom O'Neill with CIA, with about Charles Manson.
Oh, that was good. Yeah.
The best thing about that
I can never remember CIA, the title of it.
It's some things, and Charles Manson, I forget the title now, but it's a big...
It's Chaos. We better look it up right now because this will be a frustration. But that was a really good book, was it not?
What was good about it was the guy was sort of very genuine sort of writing research, and what it was, and he kept saying he couldn't, he was trying to avoid all the time, when he's doing all this research into what was going on. Like how he was trying to avoid going down the conspiracy route, trail. But what ended up being was the truth trail, and he had to go down it to find the truth. That's what was a good book, because it came to that, didn't it?
He did, and it took the name of the book was called, it was called Chaos.
Yeah, that's it, Chaos. Charles
Manson, the CIA, and the Secret History of the Sixties. And it was really good, and the thing about it is it started off as an article that he was supposed to write for a publication. I don't remember which, but like a magazine article. And it turned into a book that took him nearly 20 years to write because, like you said, he went on the truth trip and he just couldn't let go. It was good.
Terry Melcher and all those kind of people that he got from. I started to get angry with him whenever he, got close to what was really going on. And yeah, it's a good book. In fact, I've got a bad habit of starting books and not finishing them, but that one I did finish.
Alan used to always say, well, with the CIA, they threw LSD over the hedges at college campuses and so forth. But when you read this book, you do understand the CIA involvement in the drug business, not just, distributing drugs, but testing it out. How was it tested? How far back do these kind of tests go to see how people behave on drugs? Another one that was interesting. Did you ever see a documentary that Alan referenced a few times it was about Ted Kaczynski, the Unabomber. It had a long title, but it was a German filmmaker made a documentary about Ted Kaczynski. Did you see that one?
I think I did see it a while ago. Yeah.
Well, just speaking of drugs, there was an interesting connection there between one of the fellows that ended up representing scientists. So in other words, and he's an agent that is still on the go, and interestingly, he had connections to Jeffrey Epstein. But his whole business for decades was making scientists into stars. And one of the experiments that they talk about from his young fun days, of course, they're trying to make it, just like you were talking about the rave scene and the party drugs and so forth. Well, one of the things that they were doing was testing out strobe lights, LSD, how do lights affect people? How do drugs and lights in combination affect people?
Involved in all that, Jerry Garcia and all that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think, yeah, the whole thing is like a complete control setup. It's amazing how it all works, really. How we have like the hand in everything.
Now, once you start to, just like you said with the O'Neill in that book, once you start to do the truth dive, it's pretty big.
Isn't it? Pandora's box is open, once you start.
I wanted to just get that guy's, John Brockman, and Alan mentioned him a bunch of times, but he came up, he was featured in the Ted Kaczynski, documentary, and he was a star maker, a science star maker. So, fascinating group of people.
Yeah, definitely. Well, another book I've started to read, and I've had it in my bookshelf for a while. It's called Sex and Rockets by John Carter, and it's about Jack Parsons, APL lab, and his and all his exploits with L. Ron Hubbard, and all these different Crowley and all those people. I mean, those guys, what they were doing, they're just absolutely insane, doing all these rituals and setting up the OTO and all stuff like that. So I'm about a quarter of the way through now, and he's just started to get the connection with Aleister Crowley and.
Oh, that sounds like a good one. What's the title of that one again?
It's called Sex and Rockets.
Sex Rockets.
Sex and Rockets, yeah.
Sex and Rockets, okay. So besides reading, you like to get out in nature and...
Yes, I go out every morning, sometimes running, and I get my real news, you see. Animals are doing this, at least that's true,
That's it.
So I do that every morning, and then I just take my time. I usually start work at 9 o'clock, so I don't like to do long hours. But the good thing is I enjoy what I do, and I work directly for just homeowners. I don't go through any contracts or. I used to do this one guy that I used to do work for, a really good guy that passed, a few years back now. But other than that, I got established in the area. And I just have one little advertisement in the local newspaper that I get a lot of work from people and, word of mouth. And so I'm pretty much going out working and then come back for lunch. So that's good to actually, to do that. And another good thing was that I could stay out of the way when all the madness was going on. I was in the country a bit here, and so it was good. So I'm just glad I don't work for any sort of, big, because I did a bit of engineering at school, and I could have gone all the way with that probably, but I didn't bother. I just wanted to work, pretty much learn, all my trade over here in the States. But I just work for myself. If there's any bigger jobs, I have a friend who's of similar like mind as us as well, so he's a good friend of mine. So he gives me a hand if ever there's like a big job, a bigger job than normal. But I usually can handle it all on myself because, I like to say that I'm healthy and I look after myself and I enjoy another hobby I have, I actually ride motocross bikes. So that's something I do, on the weekend. And I play darts with a neighbour. And we have some really good dart games. So darts and motocross, what a combination.
Yeah.
Right, yeah, contrast, really. But
yeah.
So those are my two. So you need an escape, don't you, even though work is kind of an escape for me, because I'm away from the computer, I don't take my phone with me to work, and I'm just doing my jobs, in that moment. So that's an escape from it all, and
well, I was just speaking to, I was just talking with Graham and Gabrielle in Germany, and they said, work is their life and life is work, and they combine the two, and it's a nice philosophy. I like that, and I work all the time too, but sometimes I need a little checkout, and I call it a checkout. Maybe I go outside, I'm in the garden and weeding, and that's nice, looking up at the chemtrails in the sky. But sometimes I need to watch a really stupid movie. The stupider the better, I find. It's a checkout.
I get that, yeah, definitely. Even though, as most people, I don't, with my TV, back in 2012, I used to watch quite a lot of TV actually before then. I'd have a certain lineup that I used to watch when I got back from work, and then Saturday night lineup like Cops and America's Most Wanted and all that. But when we moved into this place, there was no cable. Like there was no. It was going to be expensive basically to get cable hooked up. I'm like and that's when I sort of combined that sort of like folded over in Finding Truths. It's like, I'm glad I didn't get one anyway. So. But like I say, I do watch an occasional DVD and a few shows, and I do watch some sport on the computer, on this computer here, actually. Minimal, really. I mean, who can watch? I don't know how people can stare at those HD TVs for one, because it was around about then when I got I stopped watching TV, and I remember going into like a bar and they did something to your eyes, like it made them give you like a headache or something. The big flat screen. They're a horror show, and people have these giant TVs bigger than the wall in their house. I hate them, so. And what they put on them is just an absolute. I mean, all right. The thing is, there is some good shows that are. I find now the TV programs are revealing, as you probably know, a lot of what's going on sort of subtly. But they're putting it in fiction. But they've been doing that all the time, haven't they? Putting things in fiction for people to take in subliminally. But I think so if you can watch some of these shows, I can just think of one off the top of my head, like that. Let's go. You can see what they're putting out. Objectively, watch things like Alan says. You have to just not get involved in the emotive content and watch them, objectively, and you can actually enjoy them. But there's so much entertainment going on, isn't there? Your mind spins if you have all these different series that you watch, and so. Stay away from it all. And
well, I think you have to be very careful and very judicious. I remember in Sudbury going into an electronics / TV store at one point. We were looking for something, and we had Jason that had was helping on the website. So the three of us were in there, and that was when the HD were first coming out, and they looked at that and they said, "Oh my goodness, take a look at what's going on there." And Alan was showing something that we don't notice now because we're so used to seeing that, but he was showing the way that the range was messed with. So our eyes perceive things close up, and then they perceive things at a distance. This is the way our vision works. But HD brings what is in the background forward. and with a heightened reality, a heightened color. It's closer, and so it makes everything. It messes with your perception, and then you add that to what they're doing with the virtual and augmented reality, and very dangerous. It is very dangerous. Yeah.
It is, especially if you're oblivious and you go and sit and stare at them. That's when, that is dangerous, you know. And then, of course, the radio frequency radiation coming off them, and all that's bad for you. I think I read a little bit of a book that I got given. I'm not sure about this guy, Joseph Mercola. Have you heard of him? Dr. Joseph.
Yeah. So I actually get his newsletter. Yeah, I get his newsletter every day, and I, download a PDF or look at some of the things that he puts out. He's very health focused. I know he has a huge team in Florida. That's where he's headquartered, and he's been at it for years, and he puts out a lot of good information.
But yeah, you've got to be careful of, so many things. You've got to defend yourself somehow. In fact, I ended up getting, one of those RFR blockers that you can put your phone in, and I tried it out, and it didn't connect to the Wi-Fi, so I know it works.
I have one of those as well, and
your router and all that. So, and I put one on the router, and it still works, but apparently, they sound like just silly gimmicks, but it does seem like they do have some sort of blocking, you can maybe block out some of that it's emitting to you. So I recommend, getting something like that. I'm sure like you say you have things like that. Just, all these little things help. I know it's a bit of a business as well, but, you do have to protect yourself, especially from these electronic devices that they have, these days. There's no way I'm carrying a phone around in my pocket. I mean, I'm not going to. I know a lot of people do, and they're just so reliant on them, and that's their choice, and some people are techie and they like them, and they can use them for a lot of things, but for me, I just don't. I mean, I held out with a flip phone for a long time, and I get this text from T-Mobile saying, you're going to have to get a new phone soon, because they will no longer be using 3G. And that was, I don't know, 2 years ago, and it was like July. He said July, I think it said July the 4th or somewhere around there. They said that it won't work anymore. Anyway, I kept it. It kept working till November. And it was still working. It probably would still work now. But where I lived was a bad reception. That wouldn't connect to the Wi-Fi. So I ended up going to the T-Mobile store and getting a different phone. And then I'm like, shit, I shouldn't have done that. I wanted a flip phone, but I got an Android.
Well, we're lost because the old flip phone, the 3G technology and all that, it's gone. That's history. So smart, not smart, you're getting it. Protecting yourself from the Wi-Fi. I mean, I was sleeping surrounded by it. So for me, I made really good progress, in the wintertime to get a room where all I have is a light. That's it. And nothing else. Yeah.
Get out, you've got the good weather down there in Texas, get outside a lot, walk around in bare feet, ground yourself, and just, it's good to just, be away from all that for a while. So hope you can, still do that as often as you can. I'm sure you do.
Oh, it's nice. And right now it's just the ideal weather. It's perfect because it's 25 degrees in the Fahrenheit. What is that? 72? I can't remember. Yeah. And, it's just perfect. It's just, it's absolutely ideal weather, and it'll probably be that way for a week or 2 weeks, and then we're going to go into, it's warmer than that. My goodness, we're pushing 80, but still, it's, when you have days that are 105 degrees Fahrenheit, 80 feels pretty blissful.
It's not bad, is it? I mean, it gets very, as you know, hot and humid here in the summer. This area in particular get a lot of mosquitoes, so when it gets to the fall and it cools off a bit, you get nearly 70 degrees, 70, 75, and there's no bugs around. It's the most pleasant time of the year. Fall is beautiful. It's like when the sun's out, that's my favourite. Well, not favourite, but I actually like the seasons, but this time of year is nice because it's, you're not getting bitten all the time, and it's a pleasant temperature,
That's nice.
So, yeah.
Well, I really appreciate you stepping in last minute with me and doing this. It was really nice.
Yeah, I wasn't sure whether I wasn't sure whether I was going to do it at first. I thought, because I don't really like going, I'll just do it, and especially if it helps you out as well. Keep it going with the real histories. The thing is, you have so many things spinning in your head sometimes that you want to talk about that I could talk about a lot more of, but you have to sort of narrow it down, don't you?
Well, I tell you what, I love your willingness to be the backup, and if somebody falls out, I'll just ring you again and we can get one of those other things that's spinning around in your head and talk about it.
Yeah. One thing I enjoyed that Dr. Sean Ross one you did.
I haven't heard back from him. He emailed me not too long after we spoke, and he wanted me to cover, I wasn't sure if he wanted to do it with me, but he wanted me to cover oxygen deprivation in Swiss prisons.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the thing. I never knew about that, side of it, so.
Yeah, it's terrible, but I emailed him back and I said, well, do you want to cover this with me? And I haven't heard from him. So he's kind of, nomadic, and when I spoke with him earlier in the summer or late May, whenever that was, he was with some friends in France, and where he is now, I don't know. So if he surfaces again, we might have another chat. So.
Okay. Well, I'll be looking out for that, and thanks for letting me speak. And
thank you, Neil.
And all the best to everybody, all the listeners, and I'll speak to you.
Okay, and then I will just mention here too that I just got a message in from Neil Foster. He doesn't know if he can re-record 5 or 10 minutes because the thunder and lightning have started. And then next week's Real History that is scheduled is with David Hughes, who has been, he's a historian and he's doing some technocracy work. So that's what's upcoming. And thank you all for listening.
Okay, goodbye.